if we could interview any studio,
who would they be?
Hello and welcome to Triangle Squared, a PlayStation podcast. I'm your host, Brett Beck, and alongside me, Mr.
Saul Bridges, bringing you guys episode 70. Lucky episode. I don't know why I keep putting Lucky behind the 70 now. It's weird.
That's okay. You throw the number out and then you throw the Lucky in. As long as you don't forget, we don't get chastised. And that's all that matters to us. If this is your first time joining us, we are a PlayStation-centric podcast. We post to YouTube in video format every Monday at 10 a.m., 12 p.m. CST, and also to podcast services at the same time. If you want to listen to us just in audio-only format, if you watch us on YouTube and you like what we're doing, consider giving us a subscribe and hitting the little bell notification button. Let you know when the episode comes out every Monday at those times. Keep you notified. And, of course, we'd like to hear from all of you in the comments what your thoughts are on every topic that we do. We love hearing you. And we also have a Discord in case you want to get a little more impersonal. We have a podcast discussion channel where we can go in-depth with everybody's thoughts. So wherever you feel most comfortable putting them, if you listen to us on podcast services and it happens to be iTunes, consider giving us a review. Helps people find us, helps us know what we're doing right and wrong, and decide what we want to do from the suggestions that we get, what we want to implement and what we don't. With that being said, Saul, is there anything else you can think of? It's a late night for me and Saul. I'm going out of town this weekend. Gonna be big baller getting to listen to Bill Burr. I'm excited.
You know, speaking of Bill Burr, I've watched 2 of his stand-ups now total. Dude, his podcast is great or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
His stand-ups are not good.
Oh, I disagree 100%.
No, yeah, like, you always talk about how good he was. Like, maybe it's just a lot of politics in there.
Well, maybe. He's a real... And there's something to be said about this. Me and Blaze are very similar in the comedy standpoint. One of my favorite things about Louis C.K. and him, but him to a much more degree, is that they have... And even... to an extent, Tom Segura, but not quite as much. But definitely Bill Burr. He's got like this self-loathing kind of...
Oh, no, his self-loathing stuff is good.
He hates the world.
Like, that's the stuff I found to make me laugh the most.
See,
the little noose thing he was doing in one of where he's like, the little chain just looked at his noose, and he's like, what if I just killed myself? Like, he's like, then I looked in the mirror, and my mirror the reflection looked back to me, and we both laughed and laughed. Like, I'm not saying, like, he's just, like, to me... He's not as good as everybody overhyped him to be. He's not a bad comedian.
Maybe that's
he's entertaining.
Maybe that's expectations. I found him without anybody telling me a word about him.
Okay, see, that's probably
Same
what it was.
Same with Louis C.K., right? I was just watching TV in like 2007 or 8, and it was this bag of dicks joke.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna go fully into that. We try and keep this show relatively clean, but that's a hilarious joke. And I remember after that, I was like, I will actively seek this man out.
Like Bill Burr, he's a good guy, and his stuff is like funny and entertaining. It's just not as funny as I was expecting it to be. Like I was expecting to be laughing a whole lot.
Did you realize that he was the dude who had the little, small cameo as one of the henchmen in
Are you saying Breaking Bad? Yeah, I pointed that out to Annie.
Yeah.
It's just weird seeing him with hair because this man's very weird if you go into the timeline that I have because it's like...
Well, he's had hair, but he's also gained and lost weight at
different
points.
And it's very weird to watch these like stand-ups out of order because it's like, this is new, right? Like 5 years ago, nope, he's bald. I'm like, okay, so... This is new, right? He has hair. Nope, 7 years ago. What's going on with his hair?
Did you see the one where he's talking about? I think you did the one where he's talking about the ape.
Yes, though
that joke,
the signing with the kitten. Yes, that was good.
That joke is gold. I love that joke.
That joke was good. See, I was just thinking like Childish Gambino. If y'all have never seen this man do stand up, Childish Gambino has one of the funniest stand up acts I've ever.
And here's where we differ. It's not bad.
But see, I loved it.
But. And I'll even say this: I didn't go into him with a lot of expectation, but there was a little. I knew about him already.
Go to Auschwitz for Children, Home Depot.
Oh man! Anyway, this is a gaming podcast.
It is.
So
it
with
is.
That
I
being
thought
said,
I would just hit the nail on the head there. I meant to tell you that before.
Yeah. So we're recording a little early, just in case you couldn't tell. This is a Thursday night, so
first ever. I think we've done it on Thursday.
I think you're right. I think we normally manage to do Friday, even if it's going to be one of those early episodes. So Saul, still. I don't think I've talked to you this week outside of the odd text. So what you been doing? What you been playing?
Octopath Traveler a lot. I finally jumped back into that, thankfully. I may go play.
You made it sound like last week you didn't have a lot of time.
No. I had like maybe an hour to play over the course of the week of the episode that we filmed. Now I'm like a total of 9 hours in, I think, instead of just like 4. And I've picked up almost half the characters.
Didn't you have like 20 or 30 hours in the demo?
Yes. And see, this is another problem that I found is that I'm skipping a lot of cutscenes and introductory chapters because I played them in the demo.
Oh, you already seen them.
Yeah. So I'm technically farther, I would think, in terms of hours because I have all that stuff I've skipped because I remember it all fairly well.
Sure.
Other than Octopath Traveler, though, I actually haven't played any Rainbow Six Siege lately, which is kind of different. I kind of try to get my little matches in every now and then. I've been playing something else instead, and that's Rocket League. And I've been playing Rocket League like crazy.
And you are playing on PS4, right? That's what I thought. I remember you saying that. What about Hollow Knight? Are you done with it for the time being?
I'm letting myself go through Octopath, and then I'm going to go back to Hollow Knight because...
Do you feel like it's a game you can do that in? Because it's a Metroidvania, right? And
I'm thinking where I'm at in the game, I know, like... I'm right outside of pretty much of a boss door, and I remember where I need to go because you can mark your map with stuff. So
I remember you telling me that.
So whenever I'm like, pretty much put the game down, I was like, I marked my map with 2 pins, and I know exactly where to go next.
Okay, because what I was going to say is like, Metroidvania. There's Metroidvania style games. There's a lot of focus on thinking about places that you've been recently, where it's like, oh, I wasn't able to do something in that area that I am now
and
able
going
to do,
back
and
to
how
it.
much is that going to affect you?
Yeah, for me, it's all fairly like I know the map really well now in Hollow Knight. Now something like Axiom Verge or even Castlevania Symphony of the Night, I've played that game so many times, and there's still pieces of that game that I don't remember parts of, like the rowboat area and even like the little arena brawler area. That I don't have to use a guide for, but I get lost in a way.
So I guess the way that you were talking, because I still haven't played Hollow Knight, I don't have a Switch. The way you were talking made me think that Hollow Knight was like pretty massive, like in terms of the map.
Oh no, it is. It's just I know.
Is the map just more straightforward? It's
just more fresh.
That's weird. I guess.
So like I know.
Sometimes sometimes I play games that are like this, and if I go away from them for like 3-4 weeks, I still remember it, but not as well as I feel like I should.
Well, and if I happen to have that, like if I happen to have problems getting around the map, which shouldn't be because I have a lot of map upgrades. I'm not going to say too much because I don't know how far Corey has gotten. But I have a lot enough of the map upgrades that I can look at my map and know where I'm at and where I've been and what I need to go and where I have like beaten these area bosses.
Sure.
I'm trying to kind of stay somewhat dark about it. But yeah, it is traditional though, Metroidvania, where you will get to a certain part in the map and you're like Corey did, there's an enemy that you can, early game that you cannot beat because you don't have the power yet. So that's actually the entrance to the area you need to get for the rest of the game. And you have to figure out how to get the power to beat him. And that happens a couple of times. When you hit with a roadblock, you don't know where to go. Like, there's a part in the game where it's pitch black and you obviously need something to fix that. You get it a little bit later and you go back. And you can mark your map with pins and stuff as you go, as long as you find each of the maps in the area. There's a guy named...
so the map is not something that uncovers as you go across it. It's something that
you have to buy each area map. And then you have to add pins, or you have to add pins. But you can get these badges or pins or whatever they're called that give you, like, one will tell you where all the benches are, which are bonfires.
Okay, yeah,
One will tell you all the vendors and stuff.
Gotcha.
And then...
give you, like, a red X on the map to kind of show where they're at or something like that.
Yeah, and I can't think of the name of the map guy now. It's not Calcifer, it's not Lucifer, it's something like that, though. But yeah, other than that, like, that's all I've been playing, really. Rocket League and a lot of Octopath. What about you?
So real quick, just while we were on Hollow Knight, I'm still waiting for the day that hopefully comes to PS4 and/or I know it won't happen, but Vita. Do you feel like I feel like you know my gaming taste enough? Do you feel like it's something I would like? Because I was real hyped for it. It seems like it's right up my right up my alley. So I mean, do you think it's something I'd like?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's just the right amount of challenging and I'm not going to say complex, but there is a lot of variety in enemy types. You know, it feels like Mega Man 2, in which you pretty much learn how to play the game and learn the way the game works by playing it. Like, there are things that in Mega Man 2, there are things a lot.
That's kind of a weird sentence because I mean that's most games to an extent, but I get what you mean.
Yeah, it makes you figure out what to do to get further.
Yeah, the game forces you to learn it, to progress.
Right, because
there's a lot of games that don't do that.
Well, Mega Man 2 does it really, really well because there are instances where Mega Man X2, I should say, not 2, just X2. Because every Mega Man game has this to an extent, but there are these little obstacles that you happen to do before you get to the actual part which you need to do it. And so it's like, oh, okay, I can do this part. And then you get down and then it's like, how do I get, I just did it. I just do that way.
Yeah, Guacamelee is really good about that. It's actually one of the most satisfying things about Metroidvanias.
Yes.
Even though I'll say Guacamelee was good about it, but it was almost too easy. So it felt good that you knew what you were doing, but it was like, I wish there would have been just a tad more challenge. 2 games that I think you should try out that I don't think you've tried out of curiosity. I'm just, more than anything, I'm curious if you ever got around to them. Did you ever play Batman Arkham Origins Blackgate, which was the Metroidvania Batman?
That's a PS Vita exclusive, isn't it?
No, it was. They even ended up coming out with it on PS4. I'm fairly positive. It may have been PS3. I can't remember, but I think it's PS4, where it's HD. It originally was a 3DS Vita title, and they're really good on handheld.
3DS.
So if you want to borrow one of my Vitas and play it, I will gladly let you do that. It's a really cool game. As for a PS4 game that I think you'd like, just because, there's so many good Metroidvanias coming out lately. I don't know what's going on. It's kind of crazy. I think that you should definitely check out, because I don't think you ever did Sundered, right?
No, I've been meaning to.
Sundered is so good, and everything you just talked about is in that game.
Great.
I love. And I thought I wouldn't like it because sometimes that becomes an issue. But every time you die, the underworld changes, so it's ever persistent as long as you're alive. But if you die, it re-random generates, and it'll be similar in terms of like the look and feel. So the areas each have a stylistic art to them. So like when you're in a certain area, like light changes and the art pieces you see around it change, but the ordering will change, and so it's procedurally generated, but it's done so by blocks. So when you go through the map, if you die, the map goes all black again to an extent. Besides certain areas, there are certain rooms that just can't change due to like
the way the game is built.
Yeah, because it's specific. It needs to be like a boss room is always going to be in the same spot. Power up shrines are going to be in the same spot, if I remember right. So in that sense, that happens. So you can always know, like, okay, well, this is a general idea of how I'm going to get back to this boss room. I know where I'm going, but since I've died, it's going to change the way I have to get there because the room's going to be different.
That's kind of cool.
But I promise it's not annoying because it's one of those things where depending on what's going on, it sounds like it could be. And I also like that every area has something that goes on where it's like you can't quite get through it if you're not ready yet. You know what I mean?
And Dead Cells comes out next week too, right? Yeah, I'm excited for Dead Cells.
No, it's the 7th, I want to say.
Oh, that's right. Is it Chasm that comes out?
No, Chasm comes out on the 31st.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I keep getting confused with.
And Chasm is so good too. But I'm really, don't get me wrong, as excited as I am for Chasm, and
I'm more excited for Dead Cells.
It's on Vita. I'm more excited for Dead Cells. It looks so good, but I'm also excited for Death's Gambit.
I've actually I watched a Twitch streamer. His name is Lobos Jr. I've mentioned him before. He actually got to play I think it was 4 hours of Death's Gambit. He got to play with developers.
I saw.
Yeah. And
I didn't watch it, but I saw that he did it.
Yeah,
I saw it on Twitter.
It's really, really cool. Even the developers at some point, they'll lead him down secret paths. He's like, you kind of missed something, go back. And it's like a really, really hard enemy. The game looks sick.
Dude, what's killer about that? That game is made in a program that I actually have game experience in making, which is Game Maker Studio.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not going to spoil it.
That's also what Hotline Miami was made in.
Yes. Yeah, and Hotline Miami is a weird game. I want to love it, but the controls on console are so weird. I want to go back and play it on PC.
Sure.
It feels really weird on a controller.
I know I never got around to what I was playing, so I'll be quick about it. I have been playing just a ridiculous amount of Mirror's Edge Catalyst. It's one of the games I picked up on the summer sale.
Is it good?
$5.99. I've honestly been so surprised. So the combat leaves some to be desired. I like that it tries and somewhat succeeds in trying to mix in the free running idea of the gameplay, so the constant movement idea into the combat. But the combat still feels just a little clunky sometimes, and you feel like you get into similar rhythms just to try and get people down and out of your way. It's a good, if anything, while the combat's, I don't want to say uninspired. That's a little too under what it's more than that. But it's like it mainly serves as a good pace breaker. And what's more interesting, the way you choose to go about combat changes the way that it affects the pacing. Because what you can do if you're just trying to get out, if you want to beat them all, then yeah, you can stop and do heavy hits and hit people around and like actually kill them. If you want to keep your momentum up, and there's a lot of things that work out in the game. So one of the mechanics of the game is that there are certain enemies that have guns that can shoot you, right? So they can shoot you from far. I get why they did this, though the first game, if I remember right, let you pick up guns. This game doesn't, and the reason is they wanted everything to feel cohesive, and the guns felt weird in a game that's primarily about that.
Could you pick up the guns in the first game?
I want to say you could, but I want to say it was something kind of like Chronicles of Riddick, where you can only use it for so long before the biometrics would lock you out. But they chose to use biometrics in this game, so you can't pick them up at all. They're biometrically linked to the people that are carrying them.
Okay.
So anyway, the ones who can shoot you have this thing called like a force or a shift force or something. Anyway, so as you're running and you start to do more moves, you get this bar that's beside your health segments that starts to fill up, and it's white, and as they shoot you it'll go away, but the longer you keep running and free flowing without slowing down and stopping, you get like a force field around you where they're hitting you and they're hurting that bar, but as long as you can keep it up, you can kind of keep yourself from getting damaged.
Right.
So if you want to outrun enemies, it makes the moment to moment gameplay a little more interesting when you're trying to outrun them instead of killing them.
That sounds really fun,
because there's a light attack that you can continue doing while you're keeping speed up, and it does like special moves to like push them out of your way or push them off of edges and stuff like that. And then heavy attacks are more for like when you're in an area where you're surrounded and you have to kill them. And it's like what I do like about it is the kicks are all directional, so you can hold L1, and then like if you want to kick them with your left leg and kick them to the right, then
that's kind of cool.
I like that. And then you can also kick them back, stagger them, shift around to the back, which is like a quick spin thing around, and then you can kick them in the back, and there's like upgrade tree that lets you get better at that. Here's what it is. It's a game that kind of underperformed, even though it had a very vocal group of people that were trying to get it to be made. It sold okay. I told Blake, because he didn't realize that it was open world as well. They went to an open world structure with this game, which is interesting, and it's cool because you can choose your own paths, even though there's runner vision still, which was in the first game, which highlights the path that you should go, or a path of least resistance, I should say.
Yeah.
But there's cool ways and hidden stuff you can find by going other areas. But if I would have bought the game new, I would have been okay with it at $60 if I would have bought it, just but I think I would have been really happy at a $40 purchase.
Okay.
And that's for the game. Considering I bought it at $6 and that's why I took the risk, the fact that it's impressed me this much is surprising.
Okay.
And I'm sure it'll wear on me eventually, but currently I'm still really enjoying it. One thing I promised World End I would do, because I realized I got super tired, and we've been doing all these weird things with Grandpa's health and your work schedule. We've been doing very late episodes, and this is a late episode, but it's not one that's nothing else is keeping us from going anywhere necessarily. So outside of us being
tired,
but there's nothing that's actually looming. Like last week, we had to get you out to go back
to go to work,
and I've had Grandpa stuff coming up. So I forgot, I guess, to cover my time with Black Ops 3. And what I want to say is that Black Ops 3 very, very much surprised me, and I'm kind of going to go. It's going to be a very brief thing. I don't want to spend too much more time on it because this has been a long opening of the episode. But if you've not played Black Ops 3 and you managed to pick it up on the PlayStation Plus thing, even if you can just catch it on a modest sale, I think it's worth a good $20-$30, maybe even more at this point, if you really think that from what you hear here that it sounds like what you are. But first thing I will say, the game is just fun. I mean, and I said that at some point when I was still in the middle of playing it, when we talked about what we were playing. But the game has got one of those things where it's just mechanically satisfying. It's fun. It's challenging in ways it needs to be challenging. I was playing on veteran, so it was even more challenging. So in that sense, I mean, I really enjoyed my time playing the game from just a sheer gameplay perspective. Call of Duty still feels fantastic. And I mean, even though I've had often years of where I'm not big on Call of Duty, I will never deny that they have fantastic shooting mechanics. It's just normally the game around those shooting mechanics isn't as alluring to me.
Right, yeah. And that's understandable, too, with the way those games work half the time.
Sure. Now, one thing we know is that I've talked on the podcast plenty of times. I actually think the Infinite Warfare was fantastic. I loved it, played it multiple times.
How was the story compared to Infinite Warfare? Better or worse?
So that's where I was going to get into. I think that from a plot of what is actually the overarching plot of what's going on and the events going on, Black Ops 3 is more interesting. And the actual subject matter is kind of crazier and really... I'll get into that. But you don't give a shit about the characters. Excuse the language. Anyway, you don't care about the characters. The game doesn't do much to really...
Which in Infinite Warfare you did. Ethan and then Reese.
And that's what I'm saying. So and I'm not going to say that Infinite Warfare was perfect, but it's the only time in a Call of Duty game I felt that attached to characters, and I felt like they spent the time doing everything they needed to do to set the characters up so that when their stories had these certain moments, that they felt more impactful.
Right.
When Ethan had his moment, felt impactful.
Yes.
When Reyes had his moment, felt impactful. It was one of those things where everything about the game, even the modest amount of time that they had Kit Harington in there, they did enough to flesh him out where I felt like he was not just a one-dimensional villain and he had a little more to him. Now, it's not perfect. Again, he's probably the weakest link of the whole story.
Yeah, he definitely was.
But that said, I still think the story was fantastic, and I think the pacing of the story was better. And some of that comes with the fact that, like I said, they gave the timing to set reasons why you'd care. And then I'll get into gameplay a little bit more about where I think the gameplay differs. But from a story perspective, I cared about the characters more in Infinite Warfare, but it was a slightly safer story. That said, Black Ops 3 story is ridiculous. It's I hate using the word mind-bending, but it really is something that you have to constantly think about, because if you just play it, you'll kind of get what's going on, and you'll still be like, wow, what the hell? That's crazy. This is weird. But if you actually, if you really are paying attention and you're trying to piece things together and really pay attention, you start being like, whoa, what is going on? And then when you actually start looking into it, if you decide to Google a little bit past it, it's funny because I already had my own thoughts where I was paying attention a lot, but not in one particular area that's real easy to miss, and it happens multiple times throughout the games. And I didn't think about it. Me and Worldin were talking about it, and he's like, well, look it up. So I did. And wow. I don't want to get fully into it.
You're talking about 3, right?
Yes.
At this point.
Black Ops 3. Did you play the campaign?
No.
Okay. Did you pick it up on PS Plus?
Yeah.
You should play the campaign.
Is it that good?
Okay, dude. So this is what I'll say.
No spoilers. Don't even lead
no spoilers.
Into possible spoilers.
I am incredibly surprised that of 2015, which was when the game came out, the game that most likely had the more mind bending. Again, I hate that word, but the more like what the hell just happened story was surprisingly. I didn't play both, to be fair, but I looked into this, and I'm not the only person that thought this. Metal Gear Solid 5, which is normally Metal Gear Solid is a game that stories normally make you go, wait, what? And are real convoluted and crazy.
I'll be the judge of this.
That's why I want you to do it.
Yeah.
So I can see how right I am. But other people I've seen actually played both and still said of the two games, Black Ops 3 surprised me more.
So Black Ops 3 is crazy enough to compare it to Metal Gear Solid 5.
And that alone is enough to be like, whoa. Weird ground for a Call of Duty game, right?
Right.
Okay, but here's more than this. I'm telling you, man. You're going to have to... The fact that a AAA game of Call of Duty stature that doesn't have like a legacy of doing this like the Metal Gear Solid games, because the Metal Gear Solid games built their reputation off of that. Call of Duty didn't.
I'll start it tomorrow then.
Yes.
Before I go to work.
I guarantee you just get past the first couple missions because they're a little slow.
I think I did play the first couple missions.
But just play it. Give yourself the time. Get the first 3 missions in, and then you'll kind of start being like, well, what's going on? Again, it has what I consider about Horizon, right? My biggest weak point for Horizon that I didn't care about the characters very much because they just didn't do a good enough job setting them up, including Aloy. Same thing in this game. I think the weakness and why I don't care about definitely the main character is because you're just player. You don't have a name. Your relationships don't really ultimately matter in a lot of ways. They write it to where you can be a girl or a boy. Again, not a problem. I just don't like character creation because I feel like it does take away some intrinsic value of the writing aspect.
I'm going to download it right now real quick. That way it'll be ready.
But in games like that's where it's one of those things where I don't like character creation because in games where it's like, well, there's a weird character trait that makes sense specifically because he's a man. Or even something wilder where it's like, well, it makes sense because he's a man who used to be a woman, right? But you can't do that in a game where you're having to write to where it straddles two different things. And that's why I like the idea of a concrete character. That said, I still think this game's subject matter is great, and it's incredibly sci-fi and weird. The visual aspects that it does are fantastic. When without saying too much more, I think that if you like sci-fi and you like weird ideas about stuff, go check this out.
Oh my gosh.
It's really, really cool. It's weird that 2 Call of Duty games technically in a row surprised me because Advanced Warfare wasn't that great from a story department to me.
I won't.
But then Black Ops, now that I played it, and then Infinite Warfare, wow. It almost makes me want to be like, well, was Call of Duty World War II story actually good? But I'm a huge sci-fi nerd, and what I liked about both of these games is the sci-fi element that they put into it. They felt definitely Infinite Warfare rather Killzone-y, and I of course miss Killzone being a consistent release.
The story is so bad, dude. I literally typed in Call of Duty Black Ops, and Black Ops 3 is the third option for PS4, but it's not even the true version.
The zombies,
and it's not even on here. There's it's literally on here for PS3. The store, man. Okay, let's get into the news. We will take this time to go ahead and hop into the news. I reset that so timestamps will be clearer.
I got you. That makes sense. Saul, obviously, there's no drop because we're going so early. So, hey, you know what?
Sorry about that drop to the hop.
Yeah, you're just going to have to do it the old-fashioned way and visit the PlayStation blog and look for yourself. All we are is just, we just go.
We are a carrier of a message.
That's right. We are Paul Revere so to speak. First thing up, and I found this actually pretty interesting, but Ninja Theory revealed that they would be releasing Hellblade for VR, though the PSVR will not be supported, so this will be for Vive and Rift. The devs say that the decision is nothing to do with Microsoft's recent acquisition of the studio, but more so because getting the game down to a visual level that could run on the limitations of PSVR would be too big a task for how small the team still is. Reasonable.
It is.
And I don't think, here's the thing. For people who are curious about, or for people who are like, oh, it's Microsoft's fault. It's
not Microsoft's fault. Because, it's Ninja Theory's fault, if anything.
Well, and I'm not even gonna say it's anybody's fault. They're a small team. They got to go where they think it makes the most sense.
Right. Well, I'm saying if there's somebody to blame, it would be Ninja Theory.
Yeah, they made the decision, and I guarantee, the fact that this is happening, this is not something they did quickly and recently. This would have been something that was going on probably before the acquisition from Microsoft. The other thing I want to say is that Minecraft, which I guess is objectively different because Minecraft is huge, and by them not updating Minecraft on PS4, they risk losing a lot of potential money, but Microsoft didn't do any kind of exclusivity anything with Minecraft. So I think that they're smart enough in going, well, this game already existed on PS4. If there was money to be made on PSVR and it was worth getting them to do it, sure. But I think the decision was made before Microsoft was even in question.
And I've seen a lot of weaker arguments too. Like Skyrim is in VR. Skyrim is literally an 8-year-old game that is not even impressive looking. Yes, compared to what Hellblade is.
And also from a gameplay perspective, no, Hellblade's gameplay is way different and it's less forgiving.
I think
you would probably not enjoy it. And I think, and that was another thing, and they summarized it, but some people were like, yeah, I can't imagine playing that game with the limitations, like we talked about, the limitations of the technology, right? The PSVR being the cheapest one, it's the one that would suffer the most on certain types of games, and this is one of them.
Yeah,
I could actually see this being really cool on
even
Rift.
Even on
you know what I mean, where you have full 360 field of camera, you have full motion control. I mean, really, I could see this being really cool. It almost makes me want to buy a Rift, but I don't want to spend that much money.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that like the quality of Hellblade compared to the quality of Hellblade VR, like you really don't want that. Like you're gonna play a weaker version.
Well, okay, and different viewpoint, right? And I'm not even gonna say devil's advocate. I'm just gonna say a different viewpoint from Microsoft's point of view, right? Do they instead just kind of let Ninja Theory do their thing, or do they force Ninja Theory to do a PSVR version so that they don't look bad in that sense? But then the PSVR version will be obviously a lesser product than the other two, and they'll be blamed, and people will be like, Microsoft botched the PlayStation one to make it look better elsewhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a lose-lose situation for everybody.
Because of the outrage culture that we live in, and the very small vocal community that exists on, as much as I love Twitter, there's the Twitter mob as a thing.
Oh,
we talk about that all the time. So when you deal with that, you don't want to deal with the Reddit mob and the Twitter mob that are going to exist and try and say something bad about the game when it was just them trying to do the best they can do. So, next thing up, and I'm skeptic but excited too, because there's 2 of these coming out this year. But Nickelodeon Kart Racers was announced to be coming this year. The game will feature characters from 12 of the network shows across 24 tracks inspired by those shows. You can play team-based co-op or local free-for-all multiplayer, so it looks like it's a full suite of a kart-based game. And the game releases on October 23rd. I hope that this is a $40 release. I have a weird inkling that maybe it won't be, but I don't know. This is by the same team that did the Cartoon Network Battle Crashers, I think, which was a $40 or $30 release, so maybe there's hope. But with this and Sonic Team Racing or whatever coming, there's 2 good options, because the last Sonic Racing game is really good, even though this one's going to be different, not made by the same developer. But again, I love kart racers. There's hope yet.
Yeah, we'll see.
As long as I can, all I'm looking for in a kart racer, I say all the time, what Mod Nation gave me that nobody else has been able to do besides Little Big Planet Karting, because it's made by the same people, is give me a real sense of speed that even Mario Kart at its fastest, 200cc, doesn't match.
Right.
And I don't feel like, and I get it from Mario's standpoint, right, because it's trying to be a more broad game, and that's why I'm a little worried about the Nickelodeon one. It's going to be a game that's aimed at more children, or at least younger people, though there will be nostalgia pulling in from like Tommy Pickles, because he's in it as a baby. These are characters that, of course, people our age are going to love.
Right.
So they're trying to pull from both. But if they try and keep the game accessible, they're either going to have to go the Mario Kart route of putting different speed tiers, or gimping the game completely and making it too easy. I would rather there be options, but even then, I don't like the fact that in Mario Kart I have to have an option, and even then it's not as quick as some games give you that real sense. Because Mod Nation was so fun because it's bombastic and quick and split-second decisions and pop your shield up, and I love that, but I also get that it shrinks your potential market.
Right.
So, but, oh well. What do you think about it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know you're not as big on kart racing as I am necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, if Reptar's a playable character, I might buy it, but Other than
he
that,
might be. Honestly, I don't know. They've only showed 4 characters off so far.
Yeah, I'm not putting a lot of faith into a game like this right now made by these people.
Depending on the pricing, depends on whether I'll pick it up. That's where I'll stay right now. And then also depending on what the previews look like. This is a game that leave the surprise out of it. These are games that are about being fun. Show me what you can about the game because it's about the way they feel in your hand, not about the mystery and based off of last week's topic. This isn't about. They need to show a game like this off because I need to see what its mechanics and feel look like so that I can say it looks like it would feel good in my hands. So, Hitman is running a contest for skilled players to get their name and likeness included in Hitman 2's future content. To participate, pre-order Hitman 2 and download the separate Sniper Assassin mode, which is a free-to-play early access mode thing that they're doing. Create an IOI, which is IO Interactive account, and play the mode on play the game, the little Sniper Assassin thing on solo mode. In the mode, you can set high scores, and the devs will take the top score for PS4, Xbox, and Steam respectively, and all separately once the competition ends on November 6th. And I think that all those winners will be kind of like they were doing with the high-profile contracts or whatever, where you'd kill like Gary Busey and stuff. They're doing that. They're going to use your name and likeness, which is awesome. It's a cool idea, good way to get people invested in, and a good way to get people to go ahead and pre-order your game. Yeah. It'd be cooler if you didn't have to pre-order the game, but whatever. Yeah. Considering they broke off and are kind of trying to be bold in their own, I get it. It's a less of a risk if they do it this way, and it's still something that boosts them from a PR perspective. Yeah, because it sounds fun. Yeah, Base Form Goku and Vegeta are the next additions to the Dragon Ball FighterZ roster, and Bandai Namco released new trailers showcasing both of them. You can see, I think it's interesting that the game chose that instead of letting you just pick them. Well, there's that, right? But I think it's interesting that the game did it that way. Even when I played it, I thought that was weird that you don't. I guess it was to differentiate itself from the Tenkaichi series or the Budokai series, where you just start off as base mode Goku, can eventually power up and go through. Right. But maybe for balancing reasons, because this is a fighting game and it's very competitive. It's actually kicking Street Fighter out of Evo. The Evo, which is insanity. So when you think about it that way, it was probably the smarter decision. It just looks weird on paper to be like, so now we're getting base Vegeta and Goku. It's cool though. It just seems like these could be skins. Good point, but they're also because there's movesets, right? Spirit Bombs coming into base Goku, stuff like that. Yeah, I guess that's true. Which is a little BS because Spirit Bomb, depending on how much energy you get, is the most powerful move ever, right? Yeah. I mean, kind of BS. Anyway, next thing up, Drinkbox Studios have finally announced a release date for the highly anticipated sequel, Guacamelee 2. The game will be out on PS4 and PC on August 21st. Another freaking Metroidvania in this big scoop of late July through August Metroidvanias. I'm excited. This is the year of Metroidvanias. I don't know how the hell I'm going to play all these. It's going to be a problem. Yeah, it's going to be a while late. We'll see. Thankfully, we don't have until September before things really pick up, but it's not far. You know what I mean? And then 2 weeks before December, we got Divinity 2, and that's going to get me real good. Yeah, I know you're excited about that. Shadow of the Tomb Raider finished development and has gone gold, preparing for its September 14th release, so if that excites you. Means it's on track and moving along well. So it's done. So now it's just to the point where it's going to be out and get ready for you to buy. Speaking of Metal Gear Solid 5 earlier, it received a new update, which is kind of wild, adding Quiet as a playable character in the FOB online mode, difficulty levels to event FOBs, new weapons to develop, and then general fixes. The last update for this game that wasn't the PS4 Pro patch was like a year ago and added Ocelot to FOB online. So the PS4 Pro patch was really good too. It's just weird to see them still updating that game, but yeah, I mean, whatever. Cool for them. I mean, maybe they're still trying to do a little bit. I mean, they made enough money off of it to make it worth it, but I wonder if it's more of a like, see, even though Kojima's not here, we're not losing all of our, we'll still support the game. Because I guess if they drop support for the game, it would have looked even worse for them. You know what I mean? So yeah, and for those that are watching the podcast, I am not drifting off or falling asleep or being distracted. There is a probably by far the biggest spider I have ever seen in my life under this guitar amp that is to my left. So I am keeping an eye out for my life and well-being. Shout out to Saul. Keep my feet up. I hate spiders. Dude, I'm telling you, the body was the size of a nickel. Oh. This thing is huge. Okay, well. Thanks, I'm going to sleep terribly. I'm kidding. It's not that big of a deal. I'll kill it one of these days. Unless it's a wolf spider. I'll leave it alone. No, this ain't a wolf spider, partner. This is black. Ooh, okay. Anyway, next up, 2K president David Ismail. I could say that wrong. If I did, sorry. Recently mentioned, yeah, like he's listening to the episode. Recently mentioned the company's interest and intentions of expanding its portfolio with, quote, quality products delivered to consumers with long engagement, end quote, across existing studios or partnerships. I found this interesting because they talked about, what is it, Fire Axis Studios or whatever, the team behind Civilization and XCOM, the most recent XCOM reboot. They're going to put another game into their rotation, and it sounds like it's going to be a new IP, which is very interesting because that just sounds like a lot of games to be rotating through, which could be good or bad. It could be good for creative refreshing.
Right.
But also, the potential, of partnerships outside of that. The main thing that I thought was funny about this is, doesn't this just sound like the weirdest?
I'll say it's over here. It's you see it. It's like right up against. See it right there?
Psh, it ain't that big, Saul. You can call
What
me
do you
out.
mean it's not that big?
You had me over here thinking of something crazy. Still need to kill it.
There it goes.
And hey, if you're one of those people that says don't kill spiders, I'm sorry. I don't like them. They freak me out. They're creepy. Yeah. Anyway, it's funny that this sentence just sounds like the oddest sugarcoating of games with services ever. And
my boy is going behind us. It's like aiming behind us. This may be a time in which the podcast will have to sit here for a second, and while we kill the spider, Brett, get a shoe.
Look, I'm gonna use Kyrie's little Peppa Pig shoe.
Look, I'm gonna move real quick, and I'm gonna let you kill him. Okay?
No, I can't reach behind you. Just smack him, or just drop it on him. I don't even care.
I am sorry for those people who may hear this.
This has been a fun episode.
If I scream,
I hope you do now.
It's in like a little divot in the floor. That is not the same spider. I'm dead serious. That is not the same spider. Oh man! And when they
Saul, just sit down.
And when they see you kill one, go ahead with your news. I want to kill the spider. When they see you kill one, they get revenge in their eyes.
Okay, next up, Fallout 76's beta has been revealed to be starting sometime in October, not long before its November 14th release date. The beta will start small, with Bethesda choosing people, very odd, I don't know why they did this, choosing people who pre-ordered the game and slowly grow as they get closer to release, which sounds like it's going to get at its highest point of stress a little too close to release for them to be able to release it in a stable state. Who knows? It's just with Bethesda's long history, I should say, of buggy releases and bad releases, this doesn't look necessarily promising. Next up, former Evolution Studio staff that was brought into Codemasters upon the closure of the studio in 2016 have unfortunately been hit with massive layoffs after the poor sales of Arcade Racer Onrush, with the rest of the team being relegated to a support studio to other Codemasters titles. Onrush debuted in the 34th spot in the UK before dropping off charts completely. All I want to say is best of luck to every single person who is affected by this, even the people who are ending up in this. So I'll just come over here.
It's over here now. It's behind you, my boy. That's a Black Widow.
Let's do this. Let's do this, Saul.
Yeah. You realize it's a Black Widow. We got serious. Hey, you handed me the fat ass sandal. Okay. Dude, this Peppa Pig's shoe smells like the dump.
Dude, Kyrie's feet smell so bad.
Dude, I don't understand. Wait, where'd it go?
It's dead.
But where did its body go?
Stuck on Kyrie's shoe.
Okay. I'm about 99% sure that was Black Widow.
I think you're right. Regardless, Saul, what I thought...
Sorry about that.
It sucks for Evolution because it really just seems like ever since the first MotorStorm, they've not really had a good game in terms of sales. They've all been great. The first MotorStorm being a PS3 launch title just really did it well. I mean, it just really... I mean, of course, launch titles get extra, benefits of just being one of the only things you can get, but it was also a technical showpiece for the console coming up, and it was one of those things that was like, PS2 definitely couldn't do this. So that was why it was important to show it off that way. So that game sold real well, but then Pacific Rift and Apocalypse both underperformed, right? Drive Club got delayed countless times and then underperformed from a sales standpoint. And actually, Drive Club didn't do too well on a review standpoint either. It's kind of a mixed bag. Even though it was a great game.
6.5, I think.
I actually really do
average.
like the game. I want to say it was a 7, maybe even a 7.5, which is still honestly good.
I still need to get Gran Turismo.
Oh, yeah. Gran Turismo's good. Though I've not played it near as much as I should have, so don't let me sound like a hypocrite. I love the game. It's just I need to play it more. Anyway, it's one of those things where now, they got closed. Codemasters bottom out. or really just brought them under their umbrella, and they were just called Codemasters Evo or whatever you want to call. But here's the thing: I was a big proponent of this game. Do you remember when it was announced and I was super excited about it? I know countless people in person and on boards that I've seen, and some people that I talked to that I just know from online relationships, who went from being excited about this game, thinking it was going to be a spiritual successor to MotorStorm, to as soon as the beta came out and showed that it didn't have a definitive start, didn't have a definitive finish, it wasn't even truly a racing game, you weren't getting in front of each other, there was no actual point in being in first, second, there was no position. It was objective-based racing. So it was like taking an objective-based mode of Overwatch and slapping it onto a racer.
Yeah. It's like taking Splatoon and making it a racing game.
The problem with that is the game looked great. It ran really great. It was a technological, oh man, the fact that it was able to run on 60 frames per second on both PlayStation and PS4 Pro, PS4 and PS4 Pro is great. While the game still looked as good as it did, it had a lot of cool stuff going for it. But the game just wasn't what everyone wanted, and that's not a hit against the studio, and it's not even a hit against Codemasters, though I feel like basically my stance on it, and I was going to originally buy it just to help support the studio, but I had to just kind of be like, it was fun enough to play the beta, but I knew that I didn't want to buy it, and I was like, I'd just be buying it for it to sit there. I'd like to think that, yes, I have enough money to just waste and support the studio, but at some point, I just got to be like, well, it's not what I wanted, and it's okay for me to not buy the game. And that's exactly what I did, and I think Ryan felt kind of similarly to it, he was talking to one of the head people on the team, but it's one of those things where it's like, the game looks great, and I wish it would have done better for them, but I think it suffered by not having... I think it was a mixture of being too ambitious while also not being what people wanted from an arcade racer.
Yeah,
right?
I understand that.
And I think that the game would have been much better handled if it was still Onrush and it still had this gameplay mode, which is Onrush gameplay mode, if that was just a gameplay mode. And there was still traditional racing across these tracks, and there was a real beginning and a real end. And I think that would have done the game way, way better. Because all the beta did for me was make me go, I really just want to go back and play MotorStorm on PS3 now. And, a testament to MotorStorm, because I love the series, and it's more defined. Now, of course, that genre during the PS3 days declined a lot, while first-person shooters just came up insanely. And first-person shooters still do real well, but they're also not as... Third-person action games are actually far more common now, I feel like. And this isn't based off anything, but when you look at what's coming out, Sony doesn't even have a first-person shooter exclusive anymore, whereas they had two last gen. So it's one of those things. Sucks for them. I wish them the best. Everybody who got laid off completely, I hope they find another job quickly. I think that they're talented developers. I guess it's just one of those things where the vision of the people who were in the position to make decisions was just not what everybody wanted, and that sucks for them. But Saul, this will excite you. Sekiro Shadows Die Twice will show exclusive gameplay footage during the PSX SEA, that's Southeast Asia, which takes place August 18th and 19th, so that's not far from now.
No, I'm excited for it.
And we'll see a bigger chunk of gameplay. Good for them.
Good. I want to hear more of that soundtrack too, though.
Yeah. And then the last thing, I put it on here because we occasionally use the store on our phones and the apps in general on our phones, but the PlayStation app on Android and iOS received an update letting users customize their cover image and profile color directly from the app, and adds landscape support for tablets. I didn't see anything else. There was no other notes on this.
Haven't you always been able to change your profile picture from the app? That's how I've always done it.
But you couldn't.
Oh, that's right. You couldn't change your icon
image.
Or whatever. Yeah.
Cover image, yeah. So with that said, who knows? It may make some people's experience on the app a little bit better. Saul, we got some reader mail?
We do. That's almost midnight already. Let's see here. So, for those that don't know, you can always follow us on Twitter at TriangleSQRD, and every Wednesday and Friday we put up a reader mail tweet in which you can ask us questions and we will answer on the show. If for some reason we do not answer your question on the show, do not fret. We do have a reader mail episode the first Friday of every month, and we will go over all questions there in case we miss you. Since we're going to do 3 for kind of time stuff and to kind of keep it consistent through every episode. If you didn't hear yours, you'll hear it on Reader Mail for sure. We have Sean Santarud. What are some of your favorite dialogue barks from NPC characters? And then Ryan says, hey, come take a gander. I don't know what that's from, but it sounds familiar.
If I'm not mistaken, that is Resident Evil 4, and that is the shopkeeper. I could be very wrong on that.
I think you are.
Give me a second. You think I'm wrong?
Yeah.
Let's find out.
because I know he says, "What are you buying?" And then you click on sell, and it's like, "What are you selling?" And then
you know what? I think you are right, but let's find out here real quick.
But yeah, like I do remember his a lot. One of my favorites.
Hold on, what's the line? We're gonna find out what it's from right now.
Hey, come take a gander. One of my favorites is Andre in Dark Souls 3. Whenever you get done with his dialogue, he says, "Prithee, be careful." It's "Prithee, be careful," and he always seems like he wants you to really be careful. And
Who's this?
Andre, the blacksmith in Dark Souls 3.
Oh yeah.
Just because, and in 1 he says something kind of similar. He's like, "No, don't go out and get yourself killed." But I am.
It's not that.
Okay, I was gonna say, is it Grand Theft Auto San Andreas? But that's my favorite. What about yours, Brett? What is it?
Well, no, I guess not.
Ryan, you're gonna have to let us know what
Ryan,
that's
you're
from.
Tell us. Watch it be from Dragon's Dogma. It wouldn't surprise me.
I actually thought about playing that again, so that may get Ryan's hopes up a little too high. But what is your favorite NPC bark from a NPC dialogue?
Okay, so this is gonna sound a little dumb, and it really is a little dumb. But I actually thought that it was one of those things that I was like, I get why this got so far out of hand, and that was specifically Skyrim Arrow to the Knee. And it's one of those things where it gained this weird status, but because it's so quotable.
Yeah, I mean, you know what?
It's one of those things where, like, I think about it all the time, and somebody's like, "Why didn't you do this?" Be like, "Well, I used to be an adventurer like you, but then I took an arrow to the knee," and something about it is so encompassing that it's hilarious and it fits every situation.
Yeah, and I can't believe I forgot about Oblivion, where you violated the law. That's classic.
That is classic. But dude, the arrow to the knee thing, I'm a big fan for quotable things, right? The biggest thing, stuff sticks with me normally when it's so ridiculous and weird that it's even there. That's like, wow, who thought of this line, right? That it's one of those things that just sticks with you. And that's one of my favorite things about comedies too. Some of my favorite comedies, Joe Dirt. All the things I love about Joe Dirt is the fact that everything he says that's funny is quotable.
Yeah.
It's quotably funny. And it's a big reason I love the 90s Little Rascals movie that they did, because so much of that is whenever they're trying to...
Is there an older Little Rascals movie?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I know there's a show, isn't there?
The Little Rascals, man, the old ones, they had multiple movies and they had a show that...
Okay, I know the show.
In like the 30s and 40s. It's super old. Huh. But yeah, the one from the 90s is one of my favorite.
Yeah.
Whenever Buckwheat runs up to the phone, he's like, "Quick, what's the number
for 911?" Yeah, that's a good movie.
I love that movie so much.
Our second question from Twitter. We have a third one coming from Facebook, it looks like. But our second question from Twitter is from Shadowist. He says, "What are some of your favorite foods while on a long gaming session?" We have answered this question a little bit in the past.
I think, was it that or was it drink? I want to say it was drink.
No, it was because I said pretzels. That'll make you remember right then and there, I bet. Maybe not. I like pretzels because they're not greasy really, and they are delicious. Have some spicy.
You can eat them without feeling like you're getting your hands
right.
dirty.
Yeah, some spicy Dijon mustard with them to dip them in, and you're good to go. I don't eat while gaming anymore, though.
Why are you eating on Dijon's mustard, man?
Huh? No. No.
The fact that it got you in a whole different way.
Well, no, I thought you said, "Why are you hating on Dijon mustard?" I'm like, what?
I said, "Why are you eating on Dijon's mustard?"
No. But yeah, so I don't really eat anymore. Me and Brett both have a very similar setup in which our PC screen is right next to our game screen. And if I'm going to eat, I just kind of pause the game or take a break from the game and then watch YouTube or something. So pretzels, though, are my go-to jam.
I don't normally eat while gaming, even though I do a lot of long gaming sessions. Normally, what I used to do all the time, it wasn't eating. Back when I used to play RuneScape for like 12-hour stints at a time throughout the middle of the night, my go-to thing was, and it's funny because everybody else's is normal Mountain Dew. Mine, for the longest time when it was still around, when they were doing the second round of the Democracy thing, was Mountain Dew. Oh Lord,
Whiteout?
Nope. And what's funny is I
the
just
blue
had
one.
it. No, it was orange Typhoon, dude. Oh my god,
they still sell that.
Nope, they did a temporary run a couple years back where they brought it back, but as of right now, it's not been back around. Game Fuel, I love. It's very similar to
Dude, Game Fuel is good.
Game Fuel is delicious, and I do like my favorite Mountain Dew flavor. That's a common. They've never gotten rid of the one that won the first.
The Pulse or whatever
Voltage.
it's called. Voltage, yeah.
Yeah, I love Voltage. Voltage is good.
Is good.
But that said, Typhoon, dude, when they came back with that limited, you can only get it in 2-liter bottles, and it was like a 6-month run of it. I drank so much again because it had already been gone at that point for like 4 years.
What was the Mountain Dew that you liked? And I bought a case of it. And I ended up giving you the case.
It was the game fuel for this year.
That's right.
Where they did what was it? It was a non-normal flavor. It was
it was some kind of weird blue flavor.
Yeah, but I liked it. It was good. I know you didn't, but I mean, don't get me wrong. Normal game fuel is a classic.
Oh no, dude!
It's
man.
But there's been plenty of good ones, man. The World of Warcraft one that they did that had the blue and the orange.
Yeah,
was delicious.
And thinking back to good old Halo 3 days of that red game fuel, boy.
Dude, they changed something in that formula because
it was better in Halo days.
No.
Yep.
I did well. Okay, I may agree with you on the flavor side, but here's the thing: that memory is tainted by how every single time that I drank one of the Halo ones, I had to go to the bathroom and poop immediately.
Okay, yeah, you're weird, dude.
But I've drank.
I drank a 12-pack of those in like 2 days.
Do you know how many of those I drank afterwards? In terms of when they did the Warcraft one the next year, and then every year since, I've always done them. And
I think it's just in a Halo can and had to get out of here. You can't contain that much Halo.
At that point in time, I didn't mind Halo, but man. That was just real. I'm telling you, I was like, I don't know if I can keep doing this. We'd skateboard to Walmart and grab one. I was like, okay, I can't do this because we're going to be held up at the Walmart for a little while. Good days back when skateboarding all day long was an option.
Shout out to Jonah Hill making a good old movie.
Right, with Atreus.
Yeah, with Atreus. But why don't you lead us off on our final reader mail question that comes from Facebook?
Okay, we're going to do a Facebook one, and let's see. Did he put one in on Wednesday? I don't think he did.
What was the ones at the top? I've never seen those before.
What, these?
Right there.
Yeah, I know, but I was looking to see if there was one from another day and see which one I thought was best. I'm going to go with Mr. Josh Drago's question, which is, which video game made you literally cry?
Nier Automata.
Okay, drew some water.
No, cried.
Made me cry.
No, yeah, made me cry. It was a happy cry though.
Yeah,
it was
not saying it is a bad thing.
It was getting you through
a happy cry for what, the true ending?
Yeah.
Okay, because I say.
No,
if we're talking about the normal.
No, I'm talking about the true ending after everything I had been through, and the credits start playing, and the song starts playing, and then you're doing a little mini game. I'm not gonna spoil
I'll
nothing.
tell you this: when I said that tears drew, that's exactly why. That damn song, the Weight of the World song, is so good.
And then you're doing a mini game that involves other components of other people, so I'm not spoiling anything, but yeah,
it feels so
it's
good
powerful.
In the moment. And then right after that scene that comes up from that, I was like, this is incredible.
I was doing one of those like things like where you're so happy. Yet you're so distraught, in which like you're laughing but you're crying at the same time, like
you're happy crying, yeah,
right. But it wasn't necessarily just happy. It was happy because I was I liked the adventure I was on, but I was sad because of the stuff that happened.
Okay, yeah. I'm trying to think if I want to go somewhere else other than this one, but this is one of the examples that I mentioned it before on the podcast to an extent, and I know that this is a game that has, obviously it's widely loved, but there's obviously a lot of people who consider it to be overhyped, and it's The Last of Us. And the reason I'll say that is that the first 30 minutes of The Last of Us,
I never cried at that, but I did tear up.
Even the first time that I played it, I teared up.
Yeah, I teared up the second time.
And I was like, man, I'm surprised that I had as much of an emotional response to that as I did, right? Now that I have a daughter,
yeah, when
I replayed it, it's one of those things where you didn't know a change had happened, right? But I went to play it, and the scene came up, and I was like, whoa. Dude, I straight bawled.
Jeff from Rooster Teeth.
Like, I couldn't quit. You know, it's like one of those things where it's like, before, it made me well up, and I was like, whoa, but I was able to pull myself out of it pretty quickly. That time, I was like, I feel like my dog just died. Dude, what the hell?
Yeah, Jeff from Rooster Teeth is the same way. There was a Dead Island trailer of like a little girl falling through like it's a weird trailer. It shows you basically how she died, and it's a little girl, and he could not watch that, and then they tried to get him to do The Last of It, and he's like, no. He's like, F-O you guys. He's like, I'm not doing that. And I think he ended up doing it, and like he ended up crying.
Well, this is what I'll say, of course. I'm not as bad as that. Like a trailer is not going to get me, right? Here's the thing. Well, a short movie maybe. The reason a trailer is not going to get me is because
it's a separation from reality.
Well, but no, a trailer can't put the time in to make you care even about them a little bit, right? Well, I think again, regardless of what you think about The Last of Us, from a number of things, I do think that the intro is a perfect intro. It sets the tone for the entirety of the game. I think that the acting is set up right. The way that the way it starts off kind of mysteriously and it kind of escalates and it gets really crazy and then it just crescendos and then comes down into what the game really truly starts at is insanity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where I just think that because the game put the time in to give you time with Sarah specifically, it made everything about
it made that
much
of it bigger impactful. Yeah.
And I think that's why it gets me. But I want to do a quick shout out because I feel like I've talked about that one before. It's going to be very quick. Kingdom Hearts 2, whenever, I don't know what it is about it that got me. The first time, I think I was young, and I was like, well, yeah, friends, because I'm a loyal friend.
Where Roxas ends?
Well, where Roxas ends, but specifically whenever Sora's talking to Hannah Pence and Olette, and he's looking at them, he's like, I don't know why, but I'm really sad to go.
Yeah.
Then a tear rolls out of his eye.
And he's like, is this a tear? He's like, why am I crying?
Yeah, and dude, I was like, no.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah,
I love that one. So that's one of those things. So there's other games, I'm sure. I mean, there's actually a lot of moments in a lot of games where I'm like, I say a lot of games. Actually, games that really, really make me want to get to that edge of really welling up and crying are few and far between, but that's what makes them so great.
Now I think about it, is that a plot hole?
What?
They're not really there, right?
Hannah Pence and Olette, they really exist.
Okay.
But the ones that Roxas hung out with were digital.
Okay, that's right. That's right.
But they were based off of real people.
Yeah.
So here's the thing.
Because you saw them in...
They didn't even know Roxas, but it's also supposed to be one of those unspoken connections of a ties of a heart.
Yeah.
Right? Is that even though they didn't actually spend any time with Sora, with Roxas, they felt a weird connection to Sora that they couldn't understand, and he felt a weird connection that he couldn't understand.
Because of the Roxas. Roxas's
no
heart.
plot hole there. There's plot holes other spots.
Look, I'm tired. This is another dumb question I answered about, like, how was he there? I asked like 2 or 3 weeks ago, that tired, and literally it was a one-word answer, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's why. But
time travel. It's the answer to everything. Yeah, okay.
Time to move on into our main topic of the show. We had our boy Corey, or everybody knows him as Crash. He wanted to ask us. He wanted us to pick an indie developer and a AAA developer and ask them interview questions on what we would interview. So me and Brett we picked a AAA developer and we picked an indie developer, and we've decided to ask them some questions we want to know. So Brett, why don't we do it this way? Why don't you do your indie? I'll do my indie, then we do your AAA, then my AAA.
Okay. Start with the smallers and go from there.
Yeah, Brett, who is your indie studio and what are you asking them?
So I was bouncing around a lot with this because I do play a lot of indie games that I love, and the way that my brain kind of tried picking it apart is what indie games tend to mean the most to me, and for what reason, and maybe not even mean the most to me, right? But which ones linger and for what reason. And how would what about those would interest me if I got a chance to sit down and talk to the developer? So this is one of those things, and it's interesting because I'm one of those people that just likes to, I like to know the process of things and why certain things worked or didn't work or anything like that.
Exactly. That's how I work.
And even more on a technical side of, I talked about it earlier. So the two that I kind of bounce between, and I know which one I'm going to land on, but I'm going to give honorable mention to Thunder Lotus, and that's because their games employ that same style that the Banner Saga has, which is that hand-drawn 2D art. Sundered is beautiful.
Yeah.
Jotun is beautiful. They are, I mean, there's something about that art style and the way that it animates. It looks so cool, and definitely in Sundered, when you get to a couple of these bosses, they're so grand in scale and so cool the way they look animated and the way that looks in an interactive sense that it's like playing Dragon's Lair, but where you actually have full control of the character in a way that just... I don't know. There's something that's cool about it. Because I remember Dragon Lair being one of those things where I was like, this is so cool looking. And I was like, why can't I really fully control this? And of course, it's because it's interactive movie, basically. Right. But what I chose to go with, and for one particular reason, and it's more because I think it's one of those things that's just, it's not really a mystery, but it goes to show you how a rabid fan base can help something. So the studio I'm going with is Drinkbox Studios. We actually talked about them earlier.
Well, Guacamelee, too.
Guacamelee, amazing. I love that game. Severed, amazing. I love that game. And what's funny about Severed, Guacamelee makes sense. I already liked Metroidvanias. Right. I still had my doubts about the game before going into it. I was like, I just don't quite know if this is what I want. And I don't know what it was. I don't know if it's because of the decidedly Mexican aesthetic. And prior to that, maybe it's because I don't feel like I knew anything about it. But I'm glad I played it because I like the aesthetic, and it made me, it's one of those things where it's like, I didn't know that I liked Norse mythology as much as I did until God of War gave me a reason to really care, and Hellblade as well. Both of those games gave me a reason to be like, well, there's really cool stuff in this that I've never bothered to check out. This is cool. So that aspect of it, but also the fact that Severed is a game in a genre that I don't think I would have ever thought that I'd like. If you explained to me on paper what Severed is, I don't think I would have said yes.
Yeah.
And there's something about Severed, and even more so the way that they were able to develop it to where it works in a way that's entirely receptive to the console's special unique features, even though other things have that unique feature. But it felt like it utilized the console in a cool way because, it started off as a Vita exclusive.
Wait, did it? I thought it was on phones first.
No, it was on Vita first for an entire year. And then it came over to 3DS and Wii U, and now it's on phones. But it took time. I think it was 2 years after by the time it got to phones. That said, though, like where I stand on that is that the main question that comes to mind is how much risk did they feel when they were making the internal decision to continue making games for the Vita, and specifically for the Vita, because I even want to say that Guacamelee started life, and I don't want to say that from an actual wrong standpoint.
Is Guacamelee 2 going to be on the Vita?
Nope, and it kills me because I played it on Vita and I love it. And that's the thing. Dead Cells, I can get over. I want it on Vita, but
But Guacamelee 2 is almost at home on the Vita.
Well, because Guacamelee 2 is going to be an extension of the first game,
right?
And I didn't play that game on a console. It feels weird to me. I don't know.
Honestly, Metroidvanias feel weird to me on console, despite that being where I played them first.
So Guacamelee was released originally as a PS3 and Vita game at the same time, April 2013, and then later came to other consoles. But that being said, they made a conscious decision early on to specifically choose Vita as one of the platforms. Now, their first two games, which was Mutant Blob Attacks and then Mutant something, some other blob game. Excuse me, I'm parched.
This is probably loud. Maybe
so, but I was thirsty. I apologize. Yeah, I can do that if you just watched it. Some people look at me so weird when I do that. I'm like, that's how I drink water, bro.
They've never seen me drink a bottle of water then.
You sip on it?
No. Like I don't think you've seen me do it either. I just put it in my mouth and I squeeze the bottle until it's gone. And
I thought maybe like you just slam it on the table.
No, I can drink, if I'm really thirsty, I can drink an entire bottle of water in like 20 seconds.
But anyway, so their first two games were Vita exclusives, at least at first. They eventually may have made their way to something else as well. But they're Mutant Blobs Attack and then Mutant Blobs from Space or something like that. I can't remember what the two games were. I played them early on in the Vita games because they were PS Plus titles. They were okay. I would have never thought that developer would have ended up making Guacamelee as amazing as it was, which was surprising. But obviously, they saw enough support from Guacamelee on the Vita, and they saw enough support from the Vita on the first two games, that they considered the Vita such a valuable platform to them that it made financial sense for them to take a risk making a unique game that utilized a unique feature that wouldn't have been on consoles, and only put the game on that console. So I guess my question would be, A, what was the inspiration for both the games? Like, what was the inspiration for moving away from what they had been setting up with these blob games, which were their first games? What moved you into this area of wanting to make something like Guacamelee? And then from there, what led you so much to want to go into an even more uncharted territory in a genre that would probably traditionally not be a genre that would do really well? Was it that they thought the niche was there, and also the support of the system being hungry for games, that they thought that the combination of that would somehow balance it? Or was it really just a faith gamble when it came time to say, what is this game going to be and where are we putting it? And they were like, this is going to be this. It's going to utilize the touchscreen in this way, and it's going to be on Vita, because we've seen enough things that. I just think it was a ballsy move. I think it was also for them. I think it garnered them a lot of really goodwill because people saw that they were really actively supporting the Vita at a time. Severed came at a time when the Vita was already dead by most people's account. It's PlayStation was done supporting it in a way. Sales had dropped off. It was, getting to a point where it was slowing down in the U.S. by a decent margin. So for it to come out when it did, the way it did, do so well, to a point where they were able to, wait and port it off to other consoles. And of course they're going to do that. That makes the most sense. Take a game that can be used, put it on 3DS. The 3DS can utilize the touch features as well. And then, of course, the Wii U could utilize touch features with the gamepad. And then, of course, mobile phones, also a good fit outside of the control mechanism. I don't know how I'd feel about moving without an actual physical input. And actually, what's funny? The physical input is one of the few times where I'm like, I could see this actually working really well on the 3DS nub. Normally the slider, I'm like, this kind of feels weird because there's no tilt dimension to it.
But that could actually be.
But that's one of the ones I'm like, I get
there.
this. But I would still miss the right analog stick for turning your character. So
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and I think that'd be my thing is what made them want to kind of evolve the way they did. And then I would actually finalize it up with why Guacamelee 2 instead of another new game. Because if you look, Severed feels like it's very much in the world of Guacamelee. I don't know that that's been confirmed. Honestly, I have no clue.
Yeah, they're both. They kind of play on that kind of like Mexican.
Which I mean, the drink box is from Mexico,
right?
So
right. Well, I'm trying to think of like what that that style of art is called. It's but it's that very heavily stylized. It's really cool art.
I love the art style. I don't know. It's really I love the way that it looks, and the way that it ended up working out. But
I wouldn't doubt if it was in the same universe.
Yeah, I mean, really, I don't know. But even if it's not in the same universe, the fact that it feels like it, I think it would have been cool to see them continue to do that. Of course, obviously, sequels are lucrative in their own way. So I don't know. I wonder if they're still working on something new. I guess that would be if I could get back like information that I couldn't necessarily, or at least if they could confirm, are you working on something else outside of Guacamelee?
Yeah,
not
that would be a
is
good
it,
one.
But are you working on something else? And if they could go further,
what would it be?
Not
Sundered
necessarily
2.
What is it going to be, but does it fit into a framework of previous titles that you've worked on, or is it another new embarking adventure? So that's my indie one. I think that would be a really fun conversation.
Sure.
Oh man, the only other. Now I'm a little regretful for not putting the Terraria developer in there, but that's okay. I have more of a reason of a long history of games and game I'm excited for, Guacamelee 2 coming, for Drinkbox to be a comfortable choice.
Right. So mine, kind of fitting for this week, would be Hello Games.
You know what? That's a really good answer because I already know. What are your questions?
My mainly it's going to be one, and it is, how long before the release date of the game did you realize that you would be missing these features? My second question would be, at what point in the development of the game did you go to Sony and ask for a release date extension if you did? Then my third question is going to be in the same ballpark of that, is because there's a conspiracy about this. And I'll ask them, is Sony the reason why you could not get an extension date on the release date? And a lot of people think that Sony is the one that forced them to release the game the way it was. And I don't know how true that is. It makes sense in a way, but then it doesn't.
In a way, right?
Yeah, it's one of those things that it could be true. It's one of those things that could be false. Sean Murray's never come out and said either way.
Mixed. I think that there's probably a little bit of truth in both, right? I don't think that Sony necessarily came out and said it themselves. I don't think that they were calling like, hey, this game's got to release.
Yeah.
What I think may have happened is, if you remember,
they put way too much funding into Hello Games for what it was.
Well, see, nobody's had a clear cut of how much Sony even helped fund the game. But here's two things that happened.
A lot.
Right? Here's two things that happened. The first thing is the game was originally shown at Gamescom, like
2014,
14, or something like that. But the thing is that version of the game that they had already been working on for years was flooded out and lost. The game had to be completely restarted.
That was 2015, wasn't it?
Yeah, something like that. So, or no, it would have been.
Or 14.
I think it was 13, and then 14 was when the flood happened, because the game released in 16, right?
No.
Are you sure?
I thought it released last year.
I don't think so.
You're not typing anything, are you? Oh.
Yeah. I want to say it was, July. Hold on, no. August 2016. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Dang, that game's been out for 2 years now.
Yeah.
Where's the time gone?
Which makes it an even better developer to talk to, right? Because this is something that they've been dealing with for upwards of, let's see, does it show the original date that it was announced? Because is insanity.
So that game's at this point is roughly on the 5 year span from now. But yeah, I just really want to know. I really want to know why, or I mean, when they realized in development that it was going to be, the features were not going to be there. I want to know that, because I feel like Sean Murray would give it to us.
December 2013 was when it was first teased at.
Okay, so almost 5 years now to what it was fully teased as and to what we actually get.
So if you think about that, that's 5 years of this game and a lot of ups and downs, right?
Right, and I'm not like, for those that don't follow us on Twitter, I'm not harping on them in any way because I like Hello Games. I think that what they're doing with the game is admirable, and many devs that are out there right now can take note from that.
And this game really put them on the spot. I mean, it really put them on the
map.
map.
I would say Sony really put them on the map.
Well, sure, but but this game did too, right? Even if it was because Sony pushed it and backed
And
it
the
and all
funding.
these things, when it comes down to it, I think if I remember right, Sony also stepped in and gave them a bigger source of funding once the flooding happened because they realized that they lost the majority of the game. They had to restart a lot from scratch. So I think a couple things happened, right?
And see, that's another reason why I almost agree with the Sony thing is because I'm curious as to
contractually. Do you think
that's what it is? Yeah, like
unspoken?
hey, we gave you you lost your source file and stuff and your source disk for this game. Here is $230,000 to get it fixed, but it has to be out by this date. And I wonder if Sean, being somewhat timid as he is, you see him in interviews, he's very, very, very timid of a person. I don't know if he would have went to Sony and said, hey, this is not going well, let's get an extension. I think he would have just did what he could to get it out.
Well, and that's why I say, this is a game that put him on the map. Even the announcement of the game put them on the map, right? Because this game is I remember when I first saw this game, I was like, whoa. But
it's ironic because I instantly thought of Spore.
But think about this: it's a mixture of stress. But also the hype he's riding of, wow, people are really into this. Maybe my dream is really going to do something big for us. So I think if you think about the fact that they lost stuff, they probably originally intended for have all this, and then even when they restarted development, they continued to intend for this. And I think towards the end, you asked, and this is just funny because I'm kind of giving, we're giving our own thoughts and answers while we're doing it, but I think that there may be something said to that. Maybe it wasn't completely the ill intent. I think it was, he probably should have handled communication better, but I think that they were kind of just doing like that wishful thinking where it's like, no, we'll keep saying it and we'll be able to work it out before release. And they just didn't realize how massive of an undertaking that was really going to be.
When you think about it, it's been 2 years now.
Which, to be fair, they could have focused on multiplayer as the first update. But it made more sense while the game has already had its negative press.
But we don't know that they have it already. This could have been something they've been focusing on since the release.
Maybe.
Or beforehand.
But think about all the ones they've done. I guess they could have released this multiplayer update before releasing the base building and the flight redirection and the way the planet works and low hovering and all these things they did and the base, when you did base building. And
a couple of these seem like really easy fixes. Now the expansions with like the base building vehicles, no, but the whole planetary orbital boosting, but
that was also tied in the update that opened Stargates.
Right, that's true too. But
but
they're putting all these little features with big features in the updates, and it makes you wonder, like, could these little features have just been rolled out individually a couple weeks after release, one by one?
Maybe, but I think the other thing is, like I say, I guess my main point is that they were setting the game up, even though it's been 2 years. Now that the multiplayer is there, they had more time to work on it, even if they've been working on it for 2 years in some capacity. Yeah. I'm sure they have been.
And the multiplayer looks like it works really well.
I think what it comes down to is that they set the game up in these 2 years to be better for when multiplayer hits. So that way, because think about it this way, even if they added multiplayer to the game still wasn't what people wanted anyway. If all they did from launch, if all they did was make it to where you could just do the same thing that you were doing when the game launched, but with a friend, it wouldn't have really been any more
fun. You haven't started a new game yet, have you?
No, dude, I'm going to tomorrow.
Did you read my Discord thing?
I don't think so.
How much do you want spoilers of the update?
Let me experience it fresh.
Okay.
Because I'm playing it tomorrow.
You start a new game. Start a new game.
I have many updates.
A new game.
I have so many upgrades.
You need to start an update or a new game. It's completely different. I'll tell you this little piece of knowledge right here just to get you a little scope of or two things, really. One, you do not start near your ship now. At all. You have to go find your ship. Two, there is new minerals. The game is not how it used to work. You need to do an update to figure out how this game works because it's literally that different. There is things that you make that have never been in the game before. And
I think I'm gonna try my luck with my character, dude. I have way too many.
Just clean slate. I mean, you can have multiple files. Just do it.
Can you? I didn't think you could. I thought to get a new character, you had to delete your character.
No. You have I have 3 files right now. One's my very first one. 2 is
we'll see.
3 or 4 months ago. Dude, I'm telling you, you have to. It's so over. Because the way things work, there are things that you build to get in the game that are your launch fuel stuff, and now is completely different stuff than what it was before. Completely. All the stuff you have now may not be worth anything.
See, but why would they? I just don't think that it has to be true because why would they do that for all the people who've been playing?
I promise you.
So every player needs to restart?
You don't even start out. You don't have to, but you don't even start out with a visor anymore. You have to craft your own visor. You don't have to fix it. You have to craft it.
All I guess what I'm getting at is that, dude, think about the people who've kept this game up for 2 years.
Well, they're going to have a lot of, like, I mean, they're probably going to adjust to it, yeah, but I'm just telling you right now, it's easier if we're all going to play together just to start a new character.
We'll see.
There's stuff called ferrite, which is like this new rock you have to mine.
We'll see.
Okay. You could terrain edit. Okay, anyways, that was my indie.
You can terrain edit already. Terrain editing's been in the game since like a year.
Yeah, but...
A year in.
Yeah, but let me tell you.
And you do it with your gun. It's
yeah, it is. No, it's really cool.
Yeah. I haven't actually done it.
I forgot to say that I've been playing that game this week. I don't know if I've repeated myself already.
You didn't say it, so.
Okay. Well, what is your AAA developer then?
All right, maybe you did. I think you did.
I think I did just like 5 minutes ago, but I'm telling you, it's almost 12:30 and I'm tired.
Okay, so AAA.
There's a big spider hiding somewhere. We killed the little one. He ran up into the house and was like, "Who is this?" Oh no! And the little one ran out.
Okay, so who's my AAA?
Yeah, your AAA developer, and what question you would ask them?
Okay, so no surprise to anyone. Realistically, the first no surprise to anyone is that I can never just give one decisive answer. So if I could, I would like to specifically, they don't exist anymore, but if I could get all the original developers of Cavia together and talk to them about the original Nier and where they really think, what they think really led that game to underperforming so much, and if it was more of a product of its time. But my main thing I'm going to go to, and this is where I really mean no surprise to anyone, for a number of reasons, I believe that I would really like to sit down with Ready at Dawn. And that is the team who developed Daxter on PSP.
Boy, that was the best PSP game.
They developed the God of War games for PSP that were both phenomenal, really good entries in the God of War series, kept the heart of what the series was at the time, while also actually adding a little more emotional depth, I feel like, into each game, and really helped flesh Kratos out as a character in good ways. And a part of the reason why I don't think that Kratos was necessarily a single note character like a lot of people want to say. They did obviously the Order, and that's where my real interest in them would end, because Deformers wasn't really anything for me. I am curious of what they're working on, so that would be worked into it as well. But I want to really focus on the Order. I think I would probably ask a couple of questions about what it's like to work on a series that's already existed and make a game that also... It's funny, right? The Order, their first original IP, which showed a lot of promise for a lot of people, didn't do very well in terms of... It sold fine, actually. It could have sold better.
In terms of word of mouth.
Yeah, critical reception didn't do fantastic.
It was nowhere near good.
But then when you think about the PSP, critical reception for both God of War games were
Was it Chains of Olympus and
Ghost of Sparta?
I can never remember Ghost of Sparta.
Daxter, again,
dude,
massively received.
Borderline telling you right now, Daxter is top 3 best PSP games.
It's a fantastic game. It really is. So it's funny, like, what is it... like? How weird, that'd be one of my questions, how weird was it to take a franchise that was already big to people and create iterations of those? So, Daxter in the Jak and Daxter series and God of War in the respective series for it. And what coming out so on top of that was, did it give them a false sense of confidence when going into the Order? And that's why some of the things went wrong with the Order. I think the other thing I would ask them is, where do they personally feel like they went wrong with the Order? Because a lot of things that people don't think about, and I'm not saying it's completely an excuse. And, the game had problems. The Order it had problems. I loved it. I still think it's a solid 7.5, 8. Depending on what you like, I think that there's an argument to go as low as a 6.5.
Excuse me.
I feel like anything under that starts to get kind of weird territory. But again, I mean, the only reviews I really had problems with are the ones that were in the 2s and 3s, because I'm like, there's nothing about this game that makes it a 2 and a 3. Just absolutely nothing. I've played worse games that you've scored as a 7 that had graphical problems, bug problems, incoherent story.
Like the Jak and Daxter collection for PSP or PS Vita. I mean, it should not have been released the way it was.
Oh God, yeah.
That's a true 2 out of 10.
Yeah, so when you think about things like that, it's just it's one of those things where I try not to be outraged at anything, but that really did upset me, because I was like, y'all are just crapping over this team that just did this for no reason. But so when I get into things that people don't think about when thinking about the game, is that the game was also developed by a team of about 100 people. And if you think about what that game was, and how technically proficient it was when it came out, I mean, literally, it was the best looking game when it came out.
I mean, it's still like one of the top 10.
It's still a hugely good looking game on the system.
And that's what, 4 years old now?
Yeah. It came out in 2015.
So 3 years old.
So, but here's the thing about the Order, right? when you go into the order and you think about what they did as 100 people, the game, and actually they've talked about this in an interview, and that's why I would really like to ask him the question and get a little more in depth and more context as to exactly what he meant. But you get the general sense of what he means in the fact that he talks about the game was almost like night and day difference between the way that other developers and people who make games viewed it whenever they were playing it and leading up to it, and the way that the critical reception was from the game's media. And that's important because actually at one point in time, early on, when the game was getting slammed by these review sites that were giving it 2 out of 10s and it was very low on Metacritic, the user rating was actually massively higher. The user rating was like a 7.5 or an 8. I don't know what it currently rests at. I think it's kind of balanced itself out as the Metacritic came back up and the user rating came down a little bit. But, if you think about this, They talked about how Naughty Dog and a lot of people were actually like just head over heels for the game and the way it played and the way it looked and all these techniques they gave. But these are people who make games and they see more to the game than we do, right? We see this product that's supposed to be engaging and fun and all these different things. They see like, oh, they did this. How did they get these cape physics to do this? How did they get the gun to do this? What lighting technique did they use to reflect light this way? Oh, they used these pre-baked reflections to get a maximum look here. They're viewing the game in a very different way than we are. They're looking at it as actual series of code and a bunch of stuff that you're doing. We're seeing it as a finished product. It is different. Now, that said, if you think about this, that game, from a technological standpoint, and really even from a gameplay standpoint in terms of what it was doing with the gameplay that it had and what it was trying to do, is on par with the Uncharted series in the way of where it was at in a technical field. And if you think about that, Naughty Dog is a group of 300 people, and this is a small team of 100 people at most when they were working on the order, making a game that no other AAA developer probably would have been able to pull off with that. So I'd say, what are the challenges of making a game this technically proficient, and how much, because they spent a long time on the engine. That's what the game was announced with the PlayStation.
What was the engine called for that?
I don't even think it had a name because it was a proprietary engine. They developed it. It's their engine. But the game is, when you look at it, I would say, like, are you sad that you've not gotten to use the engine more? And they did use it, I think, on Deformers. It's just obviously they didn't use it to its extent.
Yeah, the game was bad.
Are they using the engine on this coming up game? Because it's obviously an engine that was.
They've confirmed they're working on a new game, right?
Yes, and it's a AAA. It's a AAA game. I think it even says a third-person game. So we have some kind of idea of what it could be. I'm still hoping that the order is somewhere in the mix here. They made it sound like it's going to be a new IP though, so may not be. But that said, what are all those things leading up to it? Like, what were the challenges of 100 people working on a game that would normally be reserved for a team of 200 people or more? What was it like working with a team like that? Was it better? Did you feel like everybody had a better hold on the game because it was a smaller group of people iterating ideas, and so you had a more tight focus on what was going on? Was that to the detriment of the game? Was that tighter focus actually meaning that you spent too much time on things that in retrospect you wouldn't have spent as much time on had you thought about it? Did you think the game was going to come out as wildly, railed and slammed against as it was? Did Sony express any worry prior to release that it was going to have that thing? These are all questions I think would be interesting to say. But then, of course, I'd say, what was the game coming out that way? What effect did it have on the studio's morale? How much did it take them? Because for as much hate as they got, they also got a lot of love. How did they balance that? Like, did they thankfully see as much of the positive as they did the negative and kind of wash them out? What did they learn from it? What did they take away from it? What went wrong in their eyes and in other people's eyes that they could use towards either a sequel if they ever get that ability, or towards their next original IP that they get to develop? And how would they move that forward? And I just think that would be a fun talk because they are obviously people who care greatly about what they did. Of course, most game developers are that way, but they care massively about that game, and you could tell by all the promotional work. They were really into it, and you can also tell by just playing the game.
Attention to detail in the game is impressive.
World. It's a very realized world with a lot of atmosphere and great characters, great voice acting. They're characters I want to spend more time with, and that's why I wanted to see them. So that's my AAA, and I think that I would be over the moon to get to go do that. It'll never happen. I really just don't think it. But I would even if it's 10 years from now, I would just still like to talk about it because it's got to be something. As long as Rue Rosario is still there, who's the creative director for the team, and a couple of other people that are bigger up there, I would just really like to see what the majority of the team, as long as they were the ones that worked on the order, how it affected them. And even if it was 10 years from now, how it affected the way that the studio moved forward and how new employees looked at it.
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool. So for mine, this comes at no surprise, but it would be Luke Smith with Bungie. And I would be mainly kind of trying to figure out what their direction is going to be for Destiny 3. I think
just
a lot of
him, out of curiosity?
Just Luke Smith. Mainly because he seems to be so well spoken when it comes to problems and resolutions of those problems. But one of my big issues is that so many people were hyped up and then let down for Destiny 2. This game is supposed to have like 4 more years? 3 more years of actual time when they said 10-year plan. It's like, well, what are you going to do with these 3 years? Because you can't, you just really can't come back from what they have with Destiny 2 in a way because it's so negative.
So I get what you're saying there, but now when you say this game, do you mean Destiny as a series?
Yeah, I should say this series. Yeah.
I just want to make sure because you're not. I mean,
I'm talking about the series.
Yeah, you're
like,
not.
What are they going to do to correct the series in the path that has been trajected right now?
Destiny
3. Hypothetical Destiny 3, an end-all, be-all kind of thing, like they did in Final Fantasy 14, in which there was a meteor and it wiped everything out and it brought everything back. I know that, what is it called? The thing that just came out for it.
It's not out yet, but the Forsaken.
Forsaken, yeah, I know that that's adding a lot of cool stuff back that I may have to go check out. But just like Activision, it's of course year 3 and or year 2 bundle or whatever, and it's not including the season pass, which is stupid. But yeah, I would want to know like where the direction goes. I will say though that kudos to them because they are actually releasing a really, really cool looking, very, very cool looking grimoire book that is literally the grimoire.
Oh, actual bound.
So yeah, book. It's leather bound and
That's
it's
cool.
Really cool looking. I may pick that up just to go back and read through the story again. But go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't trying to interrupt. I was wanting to say it, but I wanted to let you kind of finish. So I think it's funny that you specifically call out Luke Smith because he wasn't even actually the director for the second game.
Nope.
When the second game started development.
Yep, he was part of Live Team of one.
It actually happened when the second game basically had to restart development 9 months prior to release.
Right. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. I think a lot of people that have qualms with Destiny 2 don't realize that their qualms weren't going to be listened to until Live Team took over, which is what we're seeing now.
It's a long time.
It really is. Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, like the Live Team...
No Man's Sky's 2 years later, so I mean,
yeah.
It happens. Yeah.
And because I will say this, like Destiny 2 was really fun at launch. Like it was really fun up until probably 3 months later. I don't think going back to it the past month or whatever, whenever they had the newest one, whatever it was, I forgot what it was called.
Osiris?
Curse of Osiris. That was fun, but I never got to do any of the in-game stuff on it, and it was fun just to go back and play again. I'll probably will go back and play Forsaken.
Osiris was the first one.
Well, it was. I played both of them.
The second one, I can't remember what it was called.
Yeah, I can't either. That should tell you something right there.
But
the story was like 2 hours long from what I played, and I mean, like I love this series. The series is really cool. The lore is really, really, really cool, and I want to see it done well. So that would be my question to them: is that like, what are you going to do for the rest of the series? Like, what are your plans? Can you give us a roadmap? Because it seems like you can't even give us a roadmap to finish out Destiny 2 until now. But then again, that comes from one of those understanding positions that a lot of things that people ask for that we're finally getting done is now just because the Live Team finally took over. It's because before that, the Live Team was not working on it. They were finishing up stuff in Destiny 1. And now we finally have the Live Team working on stuff, and it's fixing it now as opposed to then, and because it takes time.
Yeah,
so that'd be it.
And you have to do things to buy time.
Yeah.
So that'd be it. Like
just what is your direction to the series? Like,
and that doesn't. I mean, does that tie into how everything went wrong? Like, would you?
No, because it's been pretty transparent about what's gone on so far.
I think
it's really been a lot of missteps and a lot of kind of just fixing the actions they've made, because they've done things like Destiny 1 is obviously there, in which the beta of Destiny 1 was fantastic, but the beta of Destiny 1 is also literally just Destiny 1. Like
the beta was the whole game.
That beta was pretty much the whole game at the beginning. For like the first, I think, hour and a half. Whenever you come across the first Fallen Walker, I think is where the beta ended.
Yeah.
But my whole thing with that is that they seem to be really, really receptive in which they have a problem, they fix it. It's just the time it takes for them to fix that problem. This makes me curious about the general direction of the series, because we had 3 years of Destiny 1. We're going to have 3 assumed years of Destiny 2, which leaves 4 years left for Destiny 3. What is their direction to go in, and what are they going to take in with the in terms of paying attention to care of the series by then? Because I would think that would be the end of Destiny. I feel like we're going to get a resolution of something happening. In terms of this story right now,
let it either rest or die.
Right.
Either way.
In terms of right now, it seems like the big picture that was the end credit scene of Destiny 2 is still not being addressed, which I'm not complaining about, but I'm curious about. So that's
I can see that. I think it's interesting because you think about that too, and I actually think that would be something I would have fun too. So that would be a cool interview for me, because I think one of the questions I'd want to kind of slip in there is, I'm trying to think of the way to say it. When you have this kind of backlash, I think I would slip in. Was there any kind of, and whether this could be on the record or not, was there any merit to the rumors that Activision or that Bungie may have been looking at one point in time for an out from the game?
I'm pretty sure that's what it was. Like, I can't say with certainty, but
for people who don't know, just so that there's context to what we're talking about, there was a point in time earlier this year where there were rumors going around that because Bungie got a publishing deal with another company to be able to do more.
It's a Korean company, I think.
And what it came down to is that people were taking that and looking at it and going, are they trying to move themselves out of Destiny 2? There were some reports going on where people were saying that the team, Vicarious Visions, that made that would be taking over as the studio for Destiny moving forward.
I don't trust them with that.
And because they had already been working on the last 2 expansions,
right? Because
that was the thought process. Again, none of this has ever been confirmed.
Yeah, I guarantee you though they can't give you an answer because some kind of contract they have.
Sure, but I mean, and even then, it would just be one of those things where, if I could, this is all dream anyway, right?
Right.
If this is information I could get. If
Luke could be just like, well, who knows?
If I could get on a thing where it's like an NDA, right?
Yeah.
And I could say, hey, look, tell me this, and I can't tell anybody else. I just need to know, and I could do that. I would love to know, because there's something about, I feel like I could actually understand. Definitely, I don't think you have. Have you ever got around to listening to?
Nope. I already know what you're going to say. Yeah.
Blood, Sweat, and Pixels?
Blood, Sweat, and Pixels.
Dude, you should totally, if nothing else, just listen to the Destiny chapter. I think you would be... Because
is that Jason's book, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think because you're such a fan, you'd really...
Oh, no, I know I'd like it, because I like when Jason reports stuff relative to Destiny. It's great.
Well, yeah, but man, it's such a weird in-look to all the problems with the first game, and even going into the second game, and all the problems with the shakeups of leaders that they had to do without that.
And I think that's one of their problems.
They didn't even... And, it's funny, until here in the book, I always said my criticism of Destiny is that it just felt like Bungie didn't know what to do, so they fell back on Halo without it being Halo, which is really in a lot of ways what Destiny was. And they kind of they stumbled into Destiny being what it was. If you actually listen to the book in a way, I don't want to ruin it for people who really, it's a great, I listened to it, an audiobook. It's a great listen if you can do that, or if you just want to read, it's a great read. But going into what they were talking about, is
if it's a book, I do not want you to go in at all.
I don't want to go any further than the fact that it was just, literally they got out on their own and they thought that freedom was going to be this great thing, and then they realized that freedom they didn't realize
stressful.
How to rein in that freedom.
I understand that,
and it left them in a sense where they didn't know what to do. So it does seem like they fell into it, and I think that there's a reason why I would see Destiny trying to get out from under it, because if they can distance themselves from it, they get away from all the negative karma they had around, or not karma, the energy that kind of came and the negative feedback that they got. Of course, they got a lot of love from it too.
Yeah,
there's a very avid fan base. But also the fact that they would finally be really separating themselves from anything that was remotely similar to Destiny. I mean, to Halo.
Right. I don't even have a problem with it being similar to Halo at all. I think Halo is one of my favorite franchises.
Because basically,
the lore in both of these series are really, really, really cool when you take a look at it from a grander scale. When you put it in the way of their storytelling, though, it's really bad.
Oh yeah, their storytelling choices
and that's why,
are very odd.
If for those who are curious about the lore of Destiny, look into it. Really look into it. Whether it's the grimoire that you read online or the book that you buy, because the lore of Destiny is some of the coolest sci-fi stuff I've ever seen. The way they just tell it though is bad. They're not good storytelling. tellers. They're good story makers.
Yeah,
right?
And they had like a lore master that did all this stuff, which was a cool idea. But what I was wanting to add into the end of that is that, it is funny because the other thing about this is that a lot of the people who were with Bungie whenever Bungie first split off from Microsoft and started on Destiny are now gone. And it's funny, people are saying that Bungie's not even the studio that it was.
No,
and I think that's why it may even be better for them to move away from the first-person shooter.
Yeah, and it's crazy, too, because all these people, they dissolved at first when 343 made the merge. Because 343, a few people went from Bungie to 343, of course. And then now it's even less people. So it's like Bungie really isn't even a company at all that it used to be.
And that's why I think now more than ever it would be more acceptable in terms of the way that people view them and the way that now that they are still years away from Reach, which was their last official Halo game, and they've got all these like 6 years of Destiny will be out of their way when they come to this. It wouldn't be that crazy to me for them to move away from it, because now, considering that the pedigree that made them a first-person shooter studio powerhouse are gone, now would be the time to experiment and do something different.
I mean,
if you really
yeah,
wanted to.
And that's a
you
thing.
Know what I mean?
That's a thing that Destiny's a really good first-person shooter. It's just
and
the way the
is.
structure of the game works, and
but it's not Halo,
story,
and that's good because it doesn't have the same stigma as behind being the Halo studio now.
Right.
Bungie is no longer the Halo studio.
Honestly, I think that but it makes a good point that maybe that's all they were good for.
What, Halo?
No, yeah,
or first.
I would say sci-fi, the general kind of sci-fi first-person shooter.
Maybe so, man.
And that's I mean, it's sad to say, but like that's the thing is that like in their prime they were of course Halo, and then even I still look back and have fond memories and fond experiences of Destiny 1. But I mean, even then, it's just kind of like, if you told your story of Destiny just as you did with Halo, it would be so much of a better game. And that's all I have to say about it. Thank you all for tuning in to episode 7.
It's been a fun episode.
70.
7.
Yeah, let's go back a couple months.
Yeah, but it's been a fun episode. It's one of those ones that ended up being weirdly long, but
it's very
okay
long.
That, so.
Almost 1 a.m. here. But thank you, Corey/Crash the Animal, for the topic idea. Remember, everybody, that you can find timestamps and all of our links to our social media websites in the description below. And we have a special little giveaway coming up in around maybe 5 episodes. So keep an eye out for episode 75, as well as our Twitter, especially for those that like custom cases, because I think this is going to tickle your fancy a little bit.
Yeah, so what we're doing, and we're going to put it on Twitter as well. So, but anybody who listens to the show, if you follow us on Twitter and you see the custom cases and it's something you're interested in, what we're basically going to do is kind of get a feel for how much attention, I say, how much support, I guess, would be.
Well, let's save it for episode 75, boy. We got to talk it out ourselves.
Well, no, not the giveaway.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, let's talk.
This is just a Patreon thing.
I know. I was going to say, I thought we were still going to talk about that.
No, this is very, very basic. But we've been discussing on a bunch of beginning of the episodes. We keep talking about how we have a Patreon, which we have a Patreon, and it's mainly there as a form of support for us right now. We try to find ways that we could not put anything behind a paywall that would be content. We're not necessarily against that in some form or another, but we didn't want to start that way, and we're going to kind of adjust accordingly. But one thing we thought about doing is we've got a lot of attention because of the custom cases lately. And I think if we can get enough, attention and feedback from people and enough interest in it, what we'd like to do, and we'll put this on Twitter, is see if we can get enough patrons, then we will start a $3 tier. Right now we have a 1, 2, and a 5. We'll start a $3 tier, and any $3 tier and above, anybody who's on that patron tier will be entered for a chance to win a random custom case once per month, along with supporting the show and other things. We're also going to try and revamp them a little bit more than that. You do get Discord color named. Again, it's just something to show that you support the show, and it's something cool. And we're still thinking about the things that we can do. That's kind of a preliminary thing, so we'll put that on Twitter. We'll see what the feedback is on Twitter, and if there's enough of an interest for it, then we will see how that ends up working. But if that sounds like something that'd be cool to you, then make sure that you let us know. Until then, this has been Triangle Squared episode 70, and we will see you next time.
Thank you, guys. And now here comes that awkward transition of Brett hitting stop.